Hi, Dr. Durao and classmates. So for my part of my evaluation, I wanted to do a video reviewing my e-portfolio and giving a closer look into the work I've been able to put into it and a little bit of background into why I chose the things I did and just give my insight into IPC as I understand it now and the work I've done to understand Japan and how this all relates back to me and my education and work going forward. So I'm from Chihuahua, Mexico. So understanding international professional communication from the beginning was very personal to me and something that I felt very passionate about because I know personally that international collaboration is only good for everyone and it's very much needed, and it's something that could help me a lot going forward in understanding my place in and seeing how my cultural lenses prevent me from connecting with other people and so forth. So this is my homepage of my e-portfolio. I wrote a little bit about myself, and I really wanted to give folks an insight into who I really am and why I feel passionate about communication and a little bit of my personal life. And coming into the class, I was asked to pick a country to talk about, and I chose Japan. And so in getting our feet wet, I actually wrote all of my country-specific variables here that really helped me gain an insight into Japan and their culture. And that was the human and physical geography, the social relationships and institution, the political system, the economy, population demographics and psychographics, literacy levels, and cultural values. And something that I added myself was the post-World War II popular culture. So after World War II, Japan actually changed their constitution and they're unable to declare war on any countries. They're in a perpetual allyship with the US and other allied countries after their defeat in World War II. So something that Japan has used to maintain themselves as a world power is to have a soft power of popular culture. So they export a lot of their popular culture to the West and to other nations. So anime is hugely popular, and it's based around Japanese culture. And there's other aspects of Japan that have been exported as a soft power of culture. So I have all of these here in my e-portfolio, along with personas on different types of folks in Japan. And as far as my case studies, I worked on these with Brianna Foley, and we actually worked on El Salvador and Japan. And I focused very much mine on different aspects of Japan. So I wanted to look at something serious and then something more cultural. And then my case study on Princess Mako was actually a little bit of a combination of both politics and culture. And to start out with, I wrote about Ishigaki. So they're building a missile base in Ishigaki, and that's very close to Taiwan. And so this has been a source of conflict for Japan and with China, and they're doing it along with the US and their partners. So the worry is that if China and Taiwan have a conflict, then Ishigaki will likely be targeted because it's a military stronghold for Japan and the US and their allies. And in looking at the case, I really was able to gain a bigger understanding of what it means to have these kinds of conflicts that seem to be over a strategic location. So these big powers, that China, US, other big powers, have a vested interest in a specific location, which is the East China Sea in this case. And they're competing to gain locations within that area. So that causes these big localized conflicts. And something that I really liked about doing these case studies for the class is the critical evaluation. Who is this case valuable for, and why, and in which circumstances? So this helped me kind of put a bigger lens to the problem. And I was able to make a relation with the tension around Russia and Ukraine. And this was actually a couple of weeks before the war, but I saw all of the same signs. In this case, applied to Russia and Ukraine. They're both, Ukraine is a smaller power, but Russia is a large power that is interested in a strategic location. And at that point, Ukraine, much like the citizens of Ishigaki, have very little say in whether a conflict happens or not. It's bigger powers working to gain control over these special local areas. So it was very interesting to make this connection, especially right before the war. But that's the kind of understanding and level of thought that I put into these case studies. I really wanted to zoom in to what was going on in the specific area, and then zoom out and see how I could see the same patterns or the same details in other global conflicts. So aside from writing about the missile base, I also wrote about the meteoric rise of anime, which also helped me think deeply about exporting of anime, and how, because anime is made in a very unsustainable way, people are underpaid, and it's still very traditional in that they work by frame. This has led to it being exported a lot, and companies like Netflix and other large media companies are starting to make their own anime. And it could put Japan at risk of losing this strong cultural power that they have through anime. And in thinking about it more deeply, I made the connection to how, for example, Persian rugs were traditionally handmade in a handmade knotted technique in a specific region or country of origin. And these rugs, I mean, you can only have so much demand for them, that you have to outsource some of the production. So it's very similar to what's happening with anime. And now Persian rugs are made all over the world. And although they still have the Persian name, they're not as connected to their cultural roots. So it's something that we could see in the future for anime. And I also wrote about Princess Mako and her, the conflict between her and her fiance. Well, her fiance has debt from his past, and it's something that is very taboo in Japanese culture, even though it's perfectly normal here in the US, and that has really hindered her ability to live a happy, comfortable life with her fiance. And this story really helped me think critically about monarchies and how they are having trouble adjusting to the modern world. It's been compared to the British monarchy and how they've had royal members leave recently as well. So it's very interesting to see these connections, and how when one specific tradition is being impacted in a specific way, it's very likely that that carries over to another part of the world that is similar. So I've really enjoyed making these connections for my group. And in my case studies specifically, we've been able to go really in depth into how these cases are not only local, but also global, and connecting them to cultures and values, and how they affect people differently because of their specific place of origin. And I've also enjoyed working alongside Rihanna on the different case studies that she chose to do with climate change and WhatsApp and how that's grown in El Salvador, and the use of spyware in El Salvador as well. So all of that has been very influential for me personally, because it's as someone who constantly follows the news and reads a lot of international work, it's helped me think deeper about connections with other global regions, and also to think critically of where I get my media and what kind of spin that may be on the things that I'm connecting with on a daily basis. So it's been very interesting from that perspective as well. And in my sandbox, I've added a little bit more about Japan itself, other things that I've found interesting that have given me a deeper understanding of Japan, like an 80s pop song that I really enjoy. And I've learned that it's the new disco trend in pop is inspired in part by 80s pop, 80s Japanese pop. So it's a different perspective or a different type of cultural power that Japan is exporting. And it's just so interesting how culturally strong Japan is and how much of their cultural influence is seen around the world. I also shared with the class a video on a Chinese, the daughter of Chinese immigrants, and how hard it was for her to grow up here in the US. And I connected very personally with the story, and I was able to connect it with other videos that Dr. Durao had presented to us. So I really enjoyed working on that. And from there, from working on something very personal, I kind of switched my approach to these presentations to really hone in on how does IPC look like in practice, as far as what professions are there in IPC and how do they work and how do they get things done. And I found this talk on the lessons of localization very interesting. It's a project manager who gives this talk, who goes into detail in localizing products and what it takes to be good and bad examples of localization. So this was very much IPC in practice, and I really enjoy seeing how it's done in it at work. And it's something that I really like, and I'm very interested in the future. I also added a couple of more stories on Japan and current events and current happenings. So Japan has such a strong manufacturing industry that, Russia has been sanctioned from every direction because of the war in Ukraine. And Japan was one of the only countries who got a direct response from them about their sanctions, because it's on semiconductors that are critical for different manufacturing things, and it has impacted Russia heavily. Their largest tech company, Yandex, was 71% down when I wrote this, and I'm sure it's even further down now. So it's interesting to see how strong Japan is culturally and in manufacturing. They're one of the world's largest importers and one of the world's largest exporters. So they have exceptional power in the world. I also wrote about this Sashoseki. It's a killing stone. It's this stone right here. It's a volcanic rock that it's believed in Japanese mythology that this rock held the demon of a beautiful woman who had a plot to kill an emperor in the 11th century. So this was very interesting because it split, and it's obviously because of just natural erosion and water seeping into the rock. But people on social media and everywhere were freaking out about how ominous it was. And it's just, I even thought it was ominous after a while, because it's so, their mythology is so well written and it's so personal that you can really connect with it. And it's like any other mythology. And really understanding that has been very, very useful for me in my personal life. And then digging deeper into the evil nine-tailed fox and all the history behind the mythology, I started researching more Japanese mythology, and I actually found out that a lot of tropes in anime and in horror movies and other stories that are exported from Japan are stray stereotypes or traits from from their mythology. So I thought that was very interesting. And it's really, this class has really helped me develop such a deep understanding of how culture runs over there. So I've really appreciated that. And my last presentation was on an interpreter doing talks with between diplomats. So I really enjoyed that as well, because I was able to think about the things in Dr. Durao's videos, and find another informational source on how a different type of profession, an interpreter, does IPC work in real time, which I really enjoyed. And in finding more educational sources, I've been able to have more actual concepts and things to add to my mind map, which I've been able to expand. These are kind of definitions and concepts that I've been able to connect in my mind map. And as you can see, it's a big circle, right? Even though one thing may derive from the other, one thing may have more to do with culture, technology, people, and design. They're all interweaved and connected. And I've been able to make these connections through this class. And I hope to continue to build my knowledge of international professional communication and how these different things interact, especially technology and culture. I think that's something that is very interesting to me. And it's something that we just have to learn to live with, right? Technology is going to expand and we can use it to our advantage for international collaboration. And culture is something that's probably never going to fully change. People are the way they are. And we just have to learn to work together and to have better interactions and better ways to make positive connections. So I just want to say thank you so much, Dr. Durao, for teaching this class and helping me gain a bigger understanding of Japan and of myself, of how I perceive different cultures and how to be able to grow on knowledge in a specific culture. I think I've really been able to prove that I have developed a much deeper understanding for Japan, and I hope to be able to do that in the future with other countries that I may be working with. So thank you so much, and thanks for watching this video.